So I'm gonna get started. So welcome everybody who is new. My name is Julianne Griffin. For those of you that don't know me, I am a recovery mentor and a certified peer specialist. And I started a business called Blank Space Recovery, where I provide recovery mentoring services. And I also founded Swift Steps. And I'm going to move my notes over here so it doesn't look like I'm looking away from you guys. Okay, so this is the first and only peer-led support group for Swifties in recovery. I'm so glad that you are all here. This meeting is a mutual support space where Swifties can come together to share their experiences, challenges, and wins in a supportive and understanding environment. And through open and confidential discussions, we'll help each other on our recovery journeys. The intention for this group sparked from the idea that it would be really amazing. Sorry, I lost my sweat. Yep. To have the same inclusivity, support, and acceptance that I felt in the crowd of a Taylor Swift concert, but in a supportive community for people in recovery. Our focus at Swift Steps is clear. Recovery comes first. We strive to keep our community free from distractions caused by unnecessary or outside drama, ensuring that our energy and commitment are dedicated to supporting each other's path to healing and personal growth. A lot of us do focus our comments around substance use disorders, but please feel free to stay and share if your addiction or recovery relates to something other than that. We are not here to tell you what is considered recovery or sobriety. We are accepting of harm reduction and do not require abstinence to be a member. We want you to come and get the love and support that you need regardless. And you don't ever have to apologize or justify for how you're coping or surviving. If this happens to be during a meeting, we just ask that you turn your camera off, and we ask that you include vaping and smoking in that. And we thank you for your cooperation. So at this time of the meeting, I usually introduce our speaker and they share their story. And tonight, our speaker is me. So I am just going to own that I am super nervous and I have notes, and I'm probably going to maybe refer to them a little bit too much because I am not a public speaker. It's probably like my biggest fear ever. I would like take zeros in class instead of giving presentations, and I am like a straight A student. I can't stand like even a B. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of like my nervousness. So anyway. All right. So growing up with parents who struggled with addiction, I always knew I didn't want to follow in their footsteps, especially my mom's. From a young age, I really found myself taking on the role of caregiver because my mom wasn't present and able to be always. Um, and I took on the role of like protector when my dad would beat the shit out of my mom. And I would take my infant brother and stand behind the giant television set because they were huge when I was a kid. They weren't flat screens. So I would take my brother and we would hide behind the television set because I knew like I felt unsafe. And so if my brother was like an infant, that meant I was two, um, 2.5. I didn't know exactly what was happening, but I just knew it wasn't right. And I know I needed to protect him. So I just very quickly fell into that role. And I guess because the patriarchy told me it was my mom's job, I was like, this fucking bitch ain't doing her job. And so I judged her all the time for it. And I knew she wasn't doing what she should have been doing. And my dad was never around either. But like, I don't know, people don't really expect very much of dads. I'll just be honest, like back then, it was just like whatever, you know? So it wasn't like he wasn't being judged for it a whole lot. And also he was an addict and a raging alcoholic, and nobody really wanted him around anyway. And it was scary when he was there. So I just kind of like, when he was like that, I didn't want him around. But when he wasn't like that, he was like my BFF. He was my dad. Like when I was really, really little, before we moved out, before it got very, very violent, like everybody would say that I was like his sidekick. We were always together, and we were. I have memories of him like us skipping to the corner beer distributor and like me like skipping through the fucking beer boxes. Like just like kind of like inappropriate things, like me being at the bar with him. Like when I smell like an old like beer in a bar, like that reminds me of him. Or like flour, like actual like weed. I don't know what else you call it besides flour. Like that smell, that reminds me of him. I have like a visceral like like I can feel it when I smell it. Um, anyway, so I have memories like that of like being at a bar all day with my dad. Like I shouldn't have been there. I'm really good at crane machines because I was like always at the bar with my dad, and always everybody was always giving me quarters. And I really like the shuffleboard bowling bar game. And so just things I shouldn't have been doing. I remember being left in a dark basement, locked one time, locked in the basement because my dad was supposed to be watching me, but him and his friends were going off to shoot up or do something. And I was left in the basement. And I remember seeing like the whites of their eyes as they were leaving. And I don't remember who found me. I don't remember any of that. But like I also remember a story where my brother was an infant and he was in his carrier and my dad left him on the front doorstep in a blizzard. Like, and he could have died. Like, so they're just like we were not very protected. We were not very safe. And so I looked at anybody who didn't do like traditional like life the way it was presented to me as like a loser. Um, so certainly my mom and my dad, they were losers. They just couldn't get their shit together. They were weak. Um, and my family always kind of like perpetuated that stigma of like, oh, it's in their genes, like where? Like, and they would like pull their genes out, like, where is it in their genes? Like, and they just had no compassion. And so like I kind of took that on. And so as I grew up, I villainized anybody who struggled with any kind of substance at all. And so I really villainized my mom and my dad, and I hated them both for what they put me through. And I did absolutely go through a lot. And looking back, I don't blame myself really too hard for the way that that all happened. But as much as I tried to distance myself from all of that and not being like them, I still found myself um, impacted by all of that. Um, I was addicted to food. I was 200 pounds at one point. I had gastric bypass surgery. Now I'm not 200 pounds, but I struggled with food really fucking hardcore. After the gastric bypass surgery is when substances entered the picture. But before that, there was an abusive boyfriend. There was a shopping addiction. There was a multitude of things that I had tried to use to fill the holes. Um, let's see, food, shopping, substances. Yeah, and I didn't recognize any of that as like being the same. To me, it was different. It's not the same as a drug addiction. So anyway, I moved out of my mom's house, my mother and stepfather's house at 15 because my stepfather was crazy. Uh, he was institutionalized his whole life because he was a criminal from the time he was very, very young. And so he ran our house kind of like a jail. It was just like very rigid. And one time he put like a sign-in sheet on the bathroom door and a lock on the door to teach us a lesson because we didn't walk the dogs fast enough. And we needed to learn that the dogs couldn't get up and take themselves out to take a piss. And so we needed to learn the same lesson. So the lesson he learned was that if you put a lock on the door, I'm going to piss in your iced tea and you're going to drink it and puke. So that's what happened to him because I was a pissed off 15-year-old and I didn't feel like I should have to sneak down to my mom's bathroom to use the bathroom after they left to go out to dinner and didn't take us with them and left the bathroom lock on the upstairs on our bathroom. So there was just like a lot of craziness. So I moved out of there. I moved in with his family, believe it or not, his mom and his sister, because they knew just like how crazy he could be and how abusive he was. He was 6'2", my mom was 4'11", and he used to beat the fuck out of her. Like I don't know how she's still alive. I honestly, I don't know how that woman took the beatings that she took, to tell you the truth. My mom is a little petite woman and she took some beatings, had her teeth knocked out and so I've witnessed a whole lot of shit. And I really tried to not let that be my life, but it still somehow ended up being my life. I ended up in an abusive relationship. I was like, that'll never be me. It became me. And then I had to get myself out of that. And then after the gastric bypass surgery is when the substances entered the picture, but it was in a doctor's office. So I thought it was okay. And I thought it was different. Um, Also, at this point, I was living with my then husband. I skipped I'm sorry, I'm jumping over a little bit. Let me go back. I moved out of my stepdad and my mom's house. I moved in with his family. I graduated high school. My mom finally put my stepdad away for beating the shit out of her on the front lawn of our house. She finally went to every single court date and put him the fuck away. So that was like a big victory for her. At that point, I moved back in with her and I helped her get a house for me, my brother, and my sister. And we all lived together for a little bit. And then my sister and I got into an argument. She punched me in my face. My mom did nothing about it. And I was like, well, fuck this. I'm out. So I had a really good job at that point. I was a correctional officer and I got my own place. And I was just kind of like, I'm going to take control of my life. Like, my life isn't going to be the craziness. I had a steady boyfriend. He was good to me. He was my high school boyfriend. I was paying my bills. I was working. And then we broke up. And then I ended up with the abuser, then the gastric bypass surgery. Then I met my husband, who's a wonderful man and gave me all of the stability that I had always been looking for and craving. So I married him like so quick. I lived with him after 2 months. We were engaged after 7 months, married in under 2 years. But 5 months into the marriage is when I hurt my back and I went to the doctors and I was prescribed medication. Very quickly into like into our marriage, I was like over the line. I became no longer dependent, like fully just like addicted. It was very, very quick. And, he stuck by me through all of it. Um, he really did. I put him through so much. And I think he was in denial for quite some time because it took my job to be the one to call me out. Jack tried, my family tried, but there wasn't very much that they really could do except for kind of like remain in denial so that they could also survive. They didn't really know what else to do. He felt like if he took the checking account from me, I might start selling myself to support my habit. He thought as long as I had cash, I could buy like pills from actual friends instead of like going and buying like heroin or something like that. Like, he thought at least I was getting pills from a pharmacy that weren't like stamped somewhere in Philadelphia. And so, my mom was like, why isn't he doing more? And he's like, I'm just trying to like keep her alive. Like, I don't know. And so I put everybody through a whole lot of shit. And I went to work one morning and I fell asleep at my desk. And I was pulled into an office and asked if I took medication. And I said, I want my union rep. And they went and they got my union rep, and he was one of us. And he basically just said, like, do you want to save your job? And I was like, well, I need money to buy drugs. Yes. So he said, well, you should. Well, I mean, that wasn't my answer to him, but in my head, that's what it was. So he was like, you need to go to treatment. And so I was like, okay, let's go to treatment. So I went to treatment, and while I was there, I was like, I'm just gonna like, I'm just gonna do the thing. And when I get out of here, I'm just gonna hide it better. I had no plans on really actually recovering. Because I really just like didn't believe that I could, I guess, at that point. Um, mm, but like during active addiction, I don't want to like just skip over that part. Like, my days were just like filled with just like chaos, like internally, just searching, like really for anything to take the edge off, like whether it was a show, a song, a pill, like a bath, Epsom salt, 10 pounds of Epsom salt, or an entire bottle of theanine, or whatever the fuck is supposed to calm you down that you buy over the counter. Like it was always just trying to find a solution to the drugs, because I knew the drugs I couldn't do long term, but I also felt like I couldn't survive without them. And I just like I needed to find a something to so that I could continue to live. Um, so it was really fucking hopeless. And I had a DUI in there, so there were legal issues. I spent a night in jail. That was fucking terrible. I really was on like a horrible path of self self destruction. I really seriously felt like there was no way out. So when I was in treatment, thankfully I had a couple moments, like two specifically, where I kind of thought like maybe I want to actually like give this a shot. And it wasn't for me, it was for my sister and Jack. I didn't want it for myself yet, but I wanted it for them because I had put them through so much. And when they say you can't get sober for another person, like you really, like you can't, like it can start out that way. And it did for me. And it might for a lot of us because we're such fucking codependents. It might start out that way. But if there's going to be any like real lasting recovery, I think people are correct when they say that you can't get sober for another person. Like at some point, it has to change. There has to be a shift. It has to be for you. Um, and thank God there was that shift for, not thank God, sorry. I don't even believe in God. I mean to say thank Taylor. Thank Taylor, there was that shift for me, where I wanted to get it for myself. But the I had in treatment was I was sitting in a circle with all these kids, and they were all just like smoking their cigarettes, and I was eating my Jolly Ranchers because I don't smoke or drink. I don't smoke or yeah, drink coffee. So they were my cigarettes, and that's how I started gaining weight in early recovery. It was with Jolly Ranchers because mouth is dry with medication and all that. Anyway, they were talking about how many times they had been in treatment, and I said it was only my first time, and they just like they were shocked. You know, they were like 8th time, 10th time, 12th time. Like it was just, and they were so young. And one of them was like 18, and he looked at me and just said, like, just please, please, please get it now. Like, don't fuck around. Don't come back. Don't do this 10 times. Don't do this shit that we're all doing. Make this a one and done. Like, don't fuck around. And that really, like, I heard that. And a lot of people call it a God moment or whatever, moment of clarity, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I had a moment where I got up and I asked if I could use the phone, and I called home and I told Jack where the fentanyl patches were so he could get rid of them so that they weren't there when I got home. Because, like I told you, I was going home to do the same shit. So I had a stash, and my mom owed me money and pills. Like I was ready to go home and I had stuff to go home to. And so, anyway, he got rid of it. And I really decided to give it a shot. And thank God I had such great support in him, and he really did cut me a break. It's really hard to recover when you have people throwing shit in your face all the time and not like allowing you the opportunity to see like the good that you can do, or the amends that you can make, because just things are just constantly being thrown in your face. And how are you supposed to ever believe that you're going to be worthy of any kind of apology or anything? Like you're just a piece of shit. Why should I even bother? Like, so it's just, I don't know. To me, it's so important to be given compassion in early recovery. And he really, really gave that to me. And he gave me the room to make mistakes too, which is really helpful. But he also held me accountable. So I'm really grateful for him in my recovery. We really did become a team in my recovery, and I I know it's us who does the work. I know that, but the support system is so important at home and in your community, and wherever you find it. It's just important that you have that in someone or a body of people. It was for me. I really didn't think going to treatment was going to help me. I didn't think rehab would help me. I didn't think the meditation that they tried to teach me was going to fucking help me kick opiates or benzos. I didn't think that anything that they could show me was going to show me like a path out. But they did. They really did teach me a lot. And I did go to AA and I did go to NA when I first got out of treatment. And I went for a year, and it made everybody in my life feel safer. And I wanted them to feel safe for once. Um, and so I did get some things out of the rooms. And then I started a podcast with my mom because we thought that we were like totally, completely healed. How cute is that, guys? Because now we're living together and we are not fucking healed. And the ones that you are here every week, you know. And the ones of you that are not here, trust me, you want to know. So come back. Yeah, we have a hard time. But we thought we were so totally healed and BFFs, and we started a podcast, and we have 2 seasons of that where like we talk about all kinds of shit like family trauma and things that she's been through with my dad, and how she remembers calling my dad from the prom and he was putting his daughter to bed, and that was the time I found out my dad was a pedophile because she was definitely under 18 years old. So that was like a fun episode. So I found out a lot of stuff doing that. Like, so there's been a lot of like fun stuff and hard stuff and just like a lot of work that I've done since leaving treatment, and in a lot of different ways. I haven't followed like one straight line through recovery. I've gone through like a lot of different meetings and programs, and I've never even done the steps, but I'll say that AA is not for me. And now I'm in Swift Steps, and I've started Swift Steps because there wasn't really a recovery community that I felt totally wholly safe in. And I got the idea of being outside of the Eras tour. I couldn't get in, and it was just like the most safe I'd felt physically, bodily, mentally, spiritually, all the ways. Everybody was just excited for everybody who had a ticket. Everybody was excited for everybody who was outside hanging like with the other moms whose kids were able to get in, the boys in the dresses. It didn't matter. Everybody was just fucking happy for everybody else. And I felt safe, and it was like such a great night. And I thought, how cool would this be in a recovery community, like where I wouldn't be judged for being on maintenance? Because I was on maintenance for the first 5 years of my sobriety slash recovery, whatever you want to call it. And I'm still claiming 5 years of recovery during that time. That's recovery. And some of the rooms will say that it's not. And I have a very big problem with that. And so that is kind of how Swift Steps came about. And today, my days look very, very different. I have not followed this at all, by the way. Let's see, where am I? Yeah, today looks very, very different. I do meditate, believe it or not, and it does help me. I thought that was like the dumbest shit in the world. I thought, are you kidding me? But it really does help. You just have to give it a shot and like practice a little bit. And it helped me anyway. So now my life's like not about looking for something else or looking for something to escape always. Like I still, yeah, try to escape by like going on apps and swiping. I'll admit that one to you guys, or like binge watching TV or food. I love food. I had Jamie at the Olive Garden before 10 a.m. yesterday. So like the shit runs in all different directions and all through me. But every week now I do a women's meeting on Monday with you guys. I do a Speak Now meeting, this meeting on Tuesday nights. On Thursdays, we do a check-in. On Saturday mornings, we do a song breakdown where one of us, usually it depends, if somebody feels particularly called to the song that we're doing that week, they might break it down or I might break it down, and somebody comes prepared with the song and we listen to it in the beginning, and then they give us their reflection or their interpretation of like if they were looking at it as like a journal prompt, what came up for them. And a lot of these have been me processing my separation and a lot of feelings that I've compartmentalized and shoved down for years. And so it's like therapy sessions every week, and you guys just watch me bawl and like come to all kinds of realizations and stuff in real time. So it's been super wonderful for me doing all of this because it's made me do the most work that I've done on myself in all of my 8 years of recovery. So I'm very, very proud of the work that I've done, but I'm more proud of this group and the safe space that we've all cultivated together. It's so super special to me. And I just love that we can all come here and recover in our own ways and not judge one another. And that Taylor is our common thread. And that we get to use our girls' music. We get to use it to, just like lift one another up, like, and really work through like hard stuff. Like this past Saturday, I could really barely make it through the song breakdown. It brought up so much for me, but you guys were so supportive and so sweet and lovely in the chat. It just has been so wonderful. It's been lovely that I get to be a human here too. I'm just so grateful for all of it. And I guess I just want to make sure I say a couple more things before I end. Let me see. I really just want everyone to drop the shame in their recoveries. Like if I could just say like one thing, just be nice to yourselves, show yourself some compassion, cut yourself a break. And shame, you just don't need to sit in it. You really don't. Um, every day there's like 20 to 30 active people in chats, or there's 1,300 of you in the Facebook group just active every day, and it's just the coolest thing. And because of you, I feel like I'm mentally and emotionally in a better place than I have been probably my whole life. I'm feeling like the most me that I ever have. Even though I get a lot of like outside judgment for decisions that I'm making and things like that, I feel like I'm making them for me for the first time. Um, and to have you guys support me in that just means everything. And it's just, I hope that the safety and support that I feel from you guys, I hope that you're also feeling, because that's really what this is here for. This is just a fucking bonus for me. I'm just like, this is so amazing for me. I never, ever expected this. So I hope that you're all feeling the same. And let's see, Taylor, how does Taylor relate to my recovery? I'll try to be very quick here. 1989 is the album that really drew me in. On days when I couldn't get out of bed, on days when I had no drugs, on days when I was going through withdrawal, on days when I was running to the bathroom or doubled over or couldn't even stand having clothes on my skin because I was so fucking like wigged out. 1989, I could put that on and that album would peel my ass out of bed. And I could feel like a pep in my step, and it would get me going. It would get me to the train, and it would get me on the train. And then it would get me into Center City, and then it would get me up the steps to my office, and then it would keep me going throughout the day. And then it would get me home, and then I would have, the Sunday scaries every single night. But it did get me back up every single morning. And Taylor played such a pivotal role in just helping me survive then. And now, obviously, I don't even have to explain what she's doing for my recovery. I have already kind of touched on that. And with that is pretty much my story. And I just want to thank you all for being here and fumbling through that with me. And just thanks for listening. I appreciate you all.